Good morning, YouTubers. I'm going to continue on with my little instructional series of winding a bobbin on an antique sewing machine. One of the first things that you'll need, obviously, are bobbins, but sometimes you may find some challenges with finding bobbins that will work with the older machines. I was very fortunate, like I said, the woman who had my machine before, she pretty much had everything, and I got even the original bobbins. I have probably about 6 of them. So this is the original. You may see these in antique stores or whatever. If you have an antique sewing machine, grab these up because these are great to have. Especially, keep one in your purse maybe, so you can compare the sizes to make sure that they're going to work for you, or a little measuring ruler or something. They're just basically solid, and they have a little tiny hole, which is important because there's a pin. It's actually on both sides. There's a pin that will lock the bobbin onto the machine as it's winding, and then the other hole is where you actually thread the thread through to hold it so that it actually starts to take up. The next one is a little bit more of a modern one. You've probably seen these in almost any sewing area, Walmart or a sewing center. Same thing with the little hole, but it's got other holes as well. Basically the same size. I want to say the modern bobbin is slightly smaller in width, and in height I would say it's pretty comparable. I'm going to use this one today. We'll see how well this works. I've tried these before and they haven't worked so well for me, but we'll see. And then this one is a plastic one that almost all the modern machines use. It's similar to the old style one in that it's flat. There's no other holes other than the little tiny hole for threading. I have used this to wind on thread to this machine, and one of the funny things it does is that there's apparently a little bit of metal that hits on the edge, and it will very slightly shave some plastic off. So it didn't hurt anything. I mean, it was just very slight, but I guess it wasn't maybe either seated correctly or it's just ever so slightly not the correct size. So at any rate, we're going to start off with a little bit of a modern bobbin, and I have some thread. I got this just very bright thread so to help you see what I'm doing. So this unfortunately is going to be a lot of moving around to the camera, so that you guys can see what I'm doing. All right. So the first thing is setting your thread. These little ones are really nice because they sit, that the hole fits nicely, as opposed to a larger one where there's a lot more play. It does still work, but some people might not like that. Then you're going to take your thread, and there's just like a little kind of hook like this. You're going to put that there, and then you're going to bring this over to your little eyelet. There is a very tiny little eyelet with a hook again, and then it will go over to kind of like this split fork thing. Now I'm just going to hold that off to the side because I need to be able to push this on. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to thread this through the pin. It may be very hard to see. And it's on the lower side. The pin is actually right here. It's on the right side. So when I do this, I'm going to pull my thread through that little tiny hole on my left side and kind of hold it. Now I need to line up that small hole to where it will seat. And it is important for it to seat. If it doesn't, it won't work the way it's supposed to. Okay, let me kind of take up some of my slack, and it just came out. And this unfortunately is part of it. You got to fiddle with it a little bit. All right, so now this mechanism is supposed to lock down. And it won't do that because the bobbin keeps floating. There you go. It's locked down now. And remember what we had talked about with unlocking the screw motion here? That's completely locked. Now it's unlocked. And that is supposed to prevent the sewing mechanism from moving. See if I can kind of leave it in that configuration so you all can see, hopefully, how this is going to work. Now, you want to hold on to this thread. And then you just get started with your normal motion. And you do want to make sure that you are going in the proper forward direction. Now I got a few revolutions of this. I'm just going to cut this off so I don't have to mess with it. And you can see this will actually kind of teeter-totter back and forth slowly, but this is how the thread gets evenly distributed onto the bobbin. See that any different or any better? Accidentally stopped. Can't do that and hold the camera at the same time. But that is basically how you thread or to wind a bobbin. Very, very, very simple. It does look a little bit complicated, but it's really not. Again, you get practice with treadling, so you can end up, once you get to the point where you feel a little bit more confident with treadling and you want to maybe get to the point where you're going to start or thinking about starting to do some sewing, that's the next thing to do. Now I'm going to cut this, and we're going to take this bobbin. So we're going to actually do a release on this. So that should come up. Except it didn't come up very well. I'm going to have to, there it is. Pull my bobbin off. Not a ton of thread, but enough. And then this is, like I was telling you before, this is the one thing that I had to buy a replacement for. And you set your bobbin in a particular way with holding the thread in your left hand. You drop the bobbin in, and there's two notches. There's two notches, and you have to pull it through the notches, and then once you get to the point where you are ready, where it's in, it's threaded properly, there's another little notch. I'm going to take this off and show it to you if I can without jostling too much. There's a little notch here where you can close it, but the thread sticks out. And then once you get to the point where you actually thread the needle, you just basically have to dip that needle down one time. It'll catch on the underside, and then this thread will go through to the bottom where the dogs are. And that's really about it. It's fairly simple, but like anything, just requires a little bit of practice. And you may find that your bobbins don't work so great as far as sizes. You may have to fiddle around with that a little bit because they are older machines, and things do change. So I hope that was helpful for everybody, and enjoy sewing. Bye.